Okay, I think we're going to get started. I'm officially clicking the button, right? That's how it's supposed to be? Okay, good. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining this session. So, to introduce myself, I'm EllenDiamond. I am the account director at Oomph. We are a digital solutions company in downtown Providence that we work with clients all over the world. We work in a lot of different verticals, but primarily healthcare, higher ed, and nonprofits. And before we get started on today's talk, I do want to mention that 6 years ago, I was one of the organizers for the first NED camp. And so this is actually pretty meaningful for me to be back here and to be talking with you all today. So, but what are we talking about today? Specifically about how we can better our communications and develop stronger relationships with our clients. In my current role at Oomph, I talk a lot. I talk a lot to our current roster of clients. I talk to prospective clients, and I talk with my colleagues a lot throughout the day. And I think a lot about how I can better my own personal communications, how I can develop stronger relationships, and how the team at Oomph can also improve their communications. And particularly in this industry, I think that there are strategies that we depend upon to help us with our clients that are particularly applicable to our communication styles and enhancing those. So, as web professionals, we design and build experiences that resonate with our client's audience. That's our goal. And there are a lot of strategies that we use to understand them and better connect them to our clients' organizations. So discovery, right? We work with the beginning of engagements. We focus on these really immersive experiences so we can understand everything about our clients and their audiences and their goals. We focus on user journeys. We want to understand who the audience members are. What is their experience going to be like in moving through a website and achieving what they need to? We conduct interviews. We talk with stakeholders. We want to understand firsthand what's important to them, what's meaningful to them. And then there's so many other things, right, that we draw upon as web professionals. We focus on performance data. We look at Google Analytics. We conduct user surveys. We conduct focus group sessions to hear more about the people who are using the work that we're building, and design exercises with the goal of hoping to personalize the experience in some way for the user. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity for us to apply those same abilities and techniques to our client relationships. We have so much to learn from those strategies, and we'll only benefit from them. Because we cannot personalize without getting personal. So, why does it matter? Well, above all else, it's about building trust. This is essential because when trust exists, communication is much easier and can be far more effective. And it matters because it is easier to have difficult conversations. So I am not at all saying that we're going to develop these great relationships with our clients and we're never going to have a difficult conversation again. We're always going to have difficult conversations. Web projects are long, lengthy endeavors with sometimes a lot of bumps in the road. But when we do have that trust, it makes those experiences a lot easier. And I will share that just yesterday I had to have one of those conversations with one of our clients. And I was dreading it. It was difficult. But it was somebody that I had worked with for a very long period of time. And we have established trust between the two of us. And that made it a lot easier. Why else do we want to have these relationships? Well, we want new engagements, right? We, of course, are working on the engagement at hand, but we want to make sure that there's more work after this one. This is project 1, but we want project 2 and project 3 and project 4 and on and on and on. We also want to make sure that our clients are going to refer us to other people. We want really positive word of mouth feedback to be able to secure new business. And then we also know that our clients move on. They're not in the same career, in the same position. When they move to a new opportunity, that's a new opportunity for them to take us with them. And we've had that happen. In fact, just the conversation I had yesterday, I have been working with this client for over 4 years, and she is in a new organization. And they took us with them. And that's fabulous. And hopefully we'll still be around for the next one. Because at Oomph, we use this term a lot, lifetime client. That's our goal, is that every client is a lifetime client. We're not focused on a one and done relationship. We want to make sure that we build up a lengthy partnership, that that client will benefit from us having a long-term understanding of them and their goals, and we benefit as well. Because business is personal, and I can't say that enough, and I will bring it up repeatedly. So how did I get here? Why am I talking about this? So to give you a little bit of sense of my experience, so I've been working in some kind of customer service capacity for nearly 30 years. So there's some reference to my age in there. So whether it was gallery management and working with art collectors in a previous life, whether it was working in higher ed fundraising and working with donors and alumni volunteers in another previous life, or working in this industry, in the web industry, and working with our clients, the act of relationship building has always been really important to me. I can't succeed without it. It underlies everything that I do. Whether it's selling artwork, selling the impact of giving back to something, or selling digital solution. It has to be there. And I have, as I mentioned before, I've worked on this for a really long time. I've thought about this for a really long time, and I did not understand the analog to web personalization until recently. But I think that there's a lot of great things to be gleaned from it. This is the broadest definition, right? It is ultimately about the service you're providing and the trust that you're building. There has to be trust underneath all of it. Often, when we think about how we do this and how we work with clients, it is summed up as something that is pretty simple. They have good people skills, or what is often used is the term soft skills. And I will tell you that I take issue with that term, soft skills, because it conveys an ease to it. It conveys that doesn't take any effort. It's really easy. Soft skills. We know that it actually takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of work that goes into this. There's a lot of mindfulness and a lot of thoughtfulness that goes into it. Before we actually go further, how many people in the room are in some kind of forward-facing role with clients? Okay, so a lot of you will relate to this. I think that it is far more like this. It is really comprehensive, and it includes a lot of different skills. It is about persuading, influencing, empathizing, inspiring, building rapport, managing emotions and behavior, and then somehow on top of all of it, we also retain a sense of humor. That's hard to do. That takes a lot of effort. Not even a robot can do that. It's a lot. And, I don't think that there's an algorithm for empathy just yet. It is a decidedly human skill that we depend upon for this. Maybe for some, this is really easy. I have never found it to be. I have found it to be incredibly enjoyable and rewarding, but it takes effort. And so, web personalization. What is web personalization about? Ultimately, we are delivering a tailored experience based upon a user's preference, essentially. And to do so, to achieve a personalized experience, we depend upon psychology, we depend upon design and strategy to build these personalized digital experiences, with the goal being that we're building trust and we're enhancing the relationships between our clients and their audiences. Well, those same techniques and strategies can contribute to our client relationships. You can come on in. Oh, hey.
Do I have to sit right in front?
Yes.
You don't have to.
You can squeeze in the middle.
You can sit next to me.
Wherever you want.
And it's to help us build better partnerships. And it always begins with data collection. So we begin all of our engagements at Oomph, and I'm sure many of you do, with a discovery phase, with some kind of immersive opportunity to uncover all the things, right? The primary activity is to uncover what our clients' goals are, who their audience members are, and what are their audience members' goals. So let's do that with our clients. Let's do the same. Who are our clients? What do they value? What is important to them? What do they care about? And then we can start, broadening the segment. What are the demographics? Are they millennials? Are they baby boomers? Are they Gen Xers like myself? There's another age reference. And what's their role? Are they in design? Are they on the marketing team? Are they on the IT team? Are they a C-level exec or not? We want to start getting a better understanding. And then we move from the general to the specific, right? So, and I'm going to preface this with research not being creepy. It isn't creepy. I have colleagues here in this room who affectionately, I would like to think affectionately, call me a stalker. But I will say research is really good practice, and it's really important. When you interview for a job, it's expected that somebody's going to find out what they can about you, understand whether you're going to be a good fit for their organization. Well, when I begin working with a client, my expectation is that I am undertaking a very long-term commitment. And I want to understand what I'm getting into. I want to understand who is the person that I'm going to be working with. So there's a lot, obviously, to look at in our day and age now. Obviously, you want to look on LinkedIn, look at Twitter. The thing with LinkedIn, I will admit to everybody, I used to be shy about it. I think some people still are sometimes. You think like, oh, I'm logged in. I don't want to look at somebody's LinkedIn profile. You're going to see I'm looking at them. That's okay. It's okay that somebody knows you were looking at them. That's information that they've put out into their world about the past experience, and it informs who they are. I had a call a while back where I was talking with somebody, and they said, I looked at your LinkedIn profile. I saw that you worked at Brown. My dad went to Brown. We talked about their experiences visiting campus. We already, in a very short period of time, forged some small connection. It helped advance that conversation several steps further just by having that. So don't shy away from it. It's really important. And I think it provides necessary context and color to a relationship. It starts filling in the edges of who somebody is. I was at a client discovery, I guess about a month ago, and working with somebody that we had just begun a relationship with, and he had been on vacation the previous week. And he had shared with me that he had, during his vacation, he was in Mystic, Connecticut. He went biking with his girlfriend. He was looking forward to Halloween because he and his daughter and his granddaughter have an annual tradition of carving pumpkins together. None of that information had anything to do about the project, but it was no less meaningful for me to take that in. It informs a little bit more about who he is, what's important to him, and I often think of this as it's a long game. It's not a short game. So I may never put any of that information out again, or in fact, it may be another year before I put it out. and I ask him, did you and your daughter carve pumpkins again next year in 2020? And it's a small moment, but it's meaningful. It shows that you paid attention and you're understanding them a little bit more as a human, not as a client. And those things are important. So then we want to keep going a little bit deeper, right? We want to take it to the next level. What is it about this individual and this project? What's the synergy that exists between the two of them? What are their drivers? What does success mean to them individually for this project? Not about their company's goals, but what do they get out of it? Are they looking to ease some tension or stress in their own life by us working with them on a project? Is it an opportunity for advancement for them? I think it's really helpful for us to have an understanding of that. We have a lifetime client that we have worked with for a number of years, and in the course of over 4 years, I've had 2 primary points of contact, same position at that organization, and 2 completely different individuals. So I'll call them Client A and Client B. Client A was somebody far more established in his career. His time is very valuable to him. He was a family man. He is a family man with small children. And his primary interest was the social responsibility of his company and doing the right thing. He could care less about Drupal. Sorry. He could care less about design. Those weren't meaningful to him. It was about doing what felt right and then collecting the data to validate that. And then the way that he communicated was, again, he was all about efficiency, so he communicated often in acronyms and idioms. Get to the point pretty quickly. I often had to look up a lot of what he said. Then there's Client B, someone far earlier in his career, also though in a leadership position. And when we were working with him on the project, this was clearly an opportunity for him to make a very big impact in his own career growth. It gave him an opportunity to stand out in some way. He had previous knowledge with Drupal, he had quite a bit. And so he loved the project as having an opportunity to interact with our team. He also loved design and was deeply involved in it. And single, loved to travel, relatively actually informal in his communication style, but exceedingly polite and gracious. Those were 2 remarkably different people, and they absolutely had an impact on how I would communicate with each one of them. And it was really important for me to understand them as individuals and understand how I could strengthen those relationships by having that awareness and then tailoring the way I communicate based upon the people that they are. The client journey. So, we often do journey mapping with our clients' audiences. I think it's also really important when we start thinking about the individual and this project, where are they going to experience pain points throughout the process? We know enough about what our projects are like in the various phases to know when we have an expectation that our clients are going to be jumping for joy, really loving it. Client B loved design. The design phase he was all about. This is the best thing in the world. Or when things are starting to hurt quite a bit more. And understanding this also needs to come with an understanding of everything else that's going on in their lives and in their worlds. So we can map this out. What can we anticipate from their emotions? How can we ensure as little friction as possible? Or even better, when we know that we will experience friction, ensuring that our communications are helping rather than contributing to their frustration. And, I think we all know that content collection is where it hurts worst. That's the worst for just about everybody. So I mentioned before, right, that research isn't creepy, but it's really careful to not overstep, right? It can be. We know Small doses make a big impact. We also, in this industry, and just living in today's day and age, we never want to extend past the point of convenience to creepiness with personalization. It's out there. We all are kind of have these moments when we cringe and say like, no, I'm not good with that. Don't let this be a factor in your communications. I am advocating for taking in a lot more information than you may ever reflect back out to your client, because it's about understanding. And I also think it's really important to understand in yourself when the research is no longer about understanding somebody, and it tends to then take on almost like voyeuristic possibilities. And I think that you need to kind of identify that and say like, okay, this isn't about helping the client relationship anymore. What we would never want to do, I mean, imagine you're talking to a client and you said, hey, how was your trip to Mexico? Was that your wife or your girlfriend that I saw on Instagram? Like, ew, no. Like, it's like you would never want to do that. So I think that you really have to be cognizant of it and understand where that line exists. So, how do we begin to put this into practice? Well, assuming that you've done your homework and you have a much better understanding of your client, we want to see how we can begin to cater our messaging to how they want to be reached. Because we all have preferences in how we like to communicate, and it could be any number of ways. So it could be the platform that they use, the method of communication that they use, it could be the words that they use, the tone that they use. We want to be really aware of all of these things. But above all else, and you have learned this since kindergarten, right? Before anything, we need to listen. That's the best way for us to learn about what's important from our client. On the web, we have to test different versions to see what resonates with our users. We have to test to see whether Join Now is going to receive more clicks than register. We have to do a lot of A/B testing. If we're listening carefully to the people that we're working with, there's no reason to A/B test. We are hearing the words that they use. They're going to provide us with a plethora of cues to act on, but we need to listen to be aware of what those are. So, method of communication, right? We want to think about how they prefer to communicate. Are they somebody that quickly picks up the phone to talk to you? If so, then we want to meet them there. Or are they an email warrior? They just bang out these emails really quickly, and that's the best way to converse with them. I think that it is a great thing to try and be knowledgeable of, and to try and meet them where they're already congregating. I will say, so this last icon is meant to convey texting. I am the first person to always recommend that you should never give out your cell phone number to a client. I am also the very first person to give out her cell phone number to a client. So I think you have to identify your own boundaries. It is about understanding the best way to communicate with them, but couple that with what works best for you and what you are willing to permit and what you are not willing to permit. I do have clients who are great at texting. It makes it easy sometimes, but it definitely blurs the line. Language and mirroring. So we are all familiar with this phrase, right? You are literally speaking my language. That's a positive sentiment. It basically means that I hear you, you hear me, like we're on the same page. I'm a big advocate of mirroring a client's language and their tone in communications. It elicits a very positive feeling. There is comfort in the familiar, and it removes a lot of potential for friction. Ultimately, when there's a mutually spoken language, we are building rapport and we're diffusing tension. And there's tons of studies out there to support this. So this is from 2008, from the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, where there were a group of students working together on conducting negotiation exercises. And those that mirrored each other's language or nonverbal cues reached settlement 67.5% of the time. Is that right? Yeah, 67. I bumped it up a little bit. Those that didn't reach settlement 12.5% of the time. And this is proven in so many other studies, especially in the retail industry, all the time. Salespeople who mirror their customers' language and posture are far more likely to close sales than those that don't. It fosters closeness and trust. However, with all of this, it's the same thing with like research, but don't be creepy. It has to be genuine. And I can't stress this enough. Otherwise, it's not authentic and it feels forced. It does require real investment and a real understanding of the people that you're working with. That's where all of your homework comes in. And the tricky part is that it still needs to be you. So it is this balance of efforting and easing, right? The effort is all the work that you put in to understand the people that you're talking with, but the ease is yourself. That has to be a part of it. But by reflecting the words and the feelings expressed by your client and by the people that you're working with, it creates this wonderful shorthand that just puts a focus on the message and it removes other distractions. And it's not that it even just seems familiar. There are scientific studies out there that show that there's in brain studies that there's actually a chemical synergy that is happening amongst people who are using shared expressions. Scientific. And I think that nuance is a really important word to focus on. It is a really important identifier. This is about using small moments of the familiar in your relationships, in your client relationships, to help. It is not about being heavy-handed. So then we move on to empathy. So when we think about web personalization, part of achieving personalization is through the UX practice of empathy. On the web, we put ourselves in our users' shoes. We try to understand their emotions, their struggles, and their goals. In person, we can take that and we can take it a step further with the individuals that we're working with. By focusing on what's happening in their life, what stage of the user journey are they in that moment? Are they experiencing some pain or no pain at all? And acknowledging those moments can make a very big difference. I think it's important when saying this that it's not about saying to a client, I know that you're really stressed right now, so we're not going to charge you for this extra work. That is not what I'm saying. Like, that's not what this is about. But it is about about anticipating, recognizing, and acknowledging when they are stressed in the first place, and you need to communicate the need for additional work and additional budget, and what that communication can be like when you go into it with that awareness. And I would venture to say, and certainly from my own past experience, it's going to be a lot more positive. So this also is really important, and it's something that we all know, but I think it's something that we all can be reminded of, right? That the web is our job. This is what we do 9 to 5. It's the purpose of the way that we spend our time. But for our clients, it's a tiny slice of their job, and it's often on top of their 9 to 5 job. And I think that I don't think it's just this industry, it's all the time, right? It's very easy for us at times to adopt a client versus us attitude. Well, I often think that when we understand our clients as individuals and not just as client A or client B, but we do understand everything that goes into their profile and who they are, that's less likely. It's less likely that you're going to take a client versus us approach because they're people, they're humans. And actually, as an anecdote, we had an instance happen recently with one of our projects. So we have a client out in Ohio, and we are in the QA UAT phase of the project. And our client, our main primary contact is a technical lead. He's very technical. And we've been experiencing a challenging time. There have been some complexities that are arising, and having that happen when you're in the QA UAT phase of a project is never great. And there's a lot of stress all around. And I would also probably guess that because he is a very technical person, our client, that his stress is even more heightened because he understands all the complexity that we're dealing with. And so the team has been working with them for months and months, and we happen to have the lead developer of our project happens to also be in Ohio, completely coincidental, about an hour and a half away. And our lead developer volunteered and said, what if I drive over to their office and I sit with him for the day and we go through everything together and we make sure that we are really aligned about how everything is supposed to perform and function. And when we offered this to the client on a phone call, all of the friction from that call dissipated. He was so remarkably appreciative, as was I, that our developer volunteered something like that. And he arrived at that with full empathy and mindfulness of what was going on in the client's life at that moment and the stress that they were feeling and the stress that we were all feeling. And I think it was incredible. I think it was a remarkable instance, and I just loved it. So, I am aware that I am talking a lot about getting to know your clients and understanding all the ins and outs of how their minds work, and but the goal is to not become best friends with your client. That's not what this is about. And this may sound pretty detached, but I actually don't really care if our clients have much of an interest in me. It's not important. What I care about is wanting them to feel like I have a genuine interest in them. And I do, but it's not contingent upon them knowing me. Now, if they want to get to know me, if they want to know about my weekend or my vacation, I am more than happy to share all of that with them. We know I have no boundaries. I give them my cell phone. But it's not essential for that to be a successful relationship. What is really important, obviously, is that that you're asking them questions. But I did have this conversation with one of our project managers a little while ago, where I was asking how the relationship was going and how their conversations were going. And he had shared with me, like, well, it's going okay, but they never asked me anything about myself. And at the moment, I was like, that's a bummer. But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, that's okay. That's really okay. I don't think that that's essential. I'd be curious to hear if other people feel otherwise, but I think that you can still build a very strong relationship. It's likely that that will come regardless, but I don't think that it's required. So, outcomes. If you follow your process, the process that you have internally, that start with discovery, that you understand all the phases of your project, you will be successful at the end, or the goal certainly is that you will be successful at the end. By the same token, I think that if you adopt some of that process with your client, the relationship is going to be successful, and it's going to be stronger. And more than anything, it's going to be built on a foundation of trust, which is one of the most essential things, because we are lucky in that we are afforded generally a 6 to 12 month time frame to build a really invested partnership with our client. And I think that this is a really good formula for establishing that trust: credibility, reliability, and intimacy. So credibility is what came first. It is your company's, your agency's reputation. It's the work that you put out there with other clients. It's how this client that you're working with came to you. But reliability and intimacy, those are built up through this engagement, the one that you're working on. And reliability is the work that you're delivering on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, during big milestones. And the intimacy, it's not any kind of inappropriate intimacy. It's those moments that you're building, those nuanced moments of the familiar that you have been introducing in your language and bringing into your conversations. Those are what are remarkably meaningful, and it will lead to a very strong foundation of trust. And what happens with this bank of trust and goodwill that you want to always be filling is there's also a lower cost of entry for each subsequent engagement with the client. So we know that with every initial engagement we have with a client, it takes quite a bit of time to work through contracts, get to know somebody. It takes time, a lot of time, not only on our side, but also on our client side. That lifetime client that I mentioned a while ago, 4 years ago, our first engagement with them, to be able to secure that first contract took months and months and months of time. It took a lot of time, and that is a lot of time that they're spending, legal departments, stakeholders, everybody, our company put a lot of time and effort into that. I will tell you now, 4 years later, every time we develop a new work order, it takes a week to put together. That's it. There's a huge amount of efficiency that's been gained. It still may take forever to secure a signature, but the act of putting together that contract takes far less time, and that is delivering value for both sides, for your agency and for the client. So this is important. And to just have a really pithy statement to close it on, make sure your relationships add up. Thank you. Any questions? Sure, Benji?
So that last point you raised, that the first contract took months and
Yeah.
the succeeding one takes only a week.
Yeah.
Do you really feel that's because of the trust you've built up, or just because you can just sort of copy and paste from the previous one and know the process?
No.
Repeat the question for the...
Oh, yes. Thank you, Benji. Yes, so the question was whether the efficiency that's gained with each subsequent contract is actually based upon the trust that was built up, or whether it was about being able to copy and paste a template. I would say it's absolutely based upon the trust. So these are complex projects that we're working on with our clients that come with a great deal of complicated requirements. And they have a real understanding, they trust our understanding of them. And so there is not so much time now spent poring over every single word to ensure that we actually have the best intentions and that we understand everything that they're saying. They really do feel like we understand them, and I would say that we really genuinely do.
I'd just like to share something. I thought your presentation was excellent, and it delved into the right things of making that relationship. That is the nugget. Something, I always forget people aren't in my head. Something my parents taught me when I was very young that has really served well in my role as doing this was within 60 seconds of meeting someone, you should find something in common that you have in common with them.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Asking a few questions, and paying attention to what you said, the nuance.
Yes.
The nuance is the fulcrum of this. So try that in your lives. Within 60 seconds of meeting someone, whether it's the cashier at a store, whether it's your aunt that you've just met and didn't really know anything about her, try to find that. And I do that at presentations. I start it with everyone stand up, turn to someone you don't know.
That's great.
And within 60 seconds, find something you're compatible with.
That's great.
It works.
It does. And, I will add, this is, obviously this is very focused on clients, but this applies to your colleagues
Yes.
too. I mean, the one thing I will say, the difference being that I think you can be really good friends with your colleagues, and I would advocate that you should be good friends with your colleagues. It makes work a really nice place to be. Yeah.
Can you summarize the comment for the recording?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, so there was a comment shared about relationships are a key part of everything that we do, and in any instance that you're out in the world, it's really important to take those first 60 seconds and try to forge some connection with somebody. Yes.
A lot of this is, I think, contingent on being outgoing. What's your opinion on if you are naturally introverted and in a customer service role?
So the question was about, it seemed like this was very much based on the fact that you have more of an outgoing personality, and what happens if the person who's working with the clients is more introverted in nature. I actually would say that I think introverted tendencies, and this is of course a big generalization, lend themselves extremely well to observation and understanding and listening with the people that you're working with. And as I said before, nuanced is what's important. I don't think you need to be the loudest voice in the room. I don't think you should be. As I said before, this isn't about us. This is about us understanding our clients, and we want to put the focus on them. Yes?
So my question is about mirroring.
Yes.
And I've come across that technique in multiple capacities, from
Right.
books to blog posts to training to this and that. What happens when two people realize that they're mirroring each other?
That's a great question. Oh, so the question is what happens when two people realize that they're mirroring each other? That's fantastic. So, and I'm not sure. So I have been in a situation, sometimes it's interesting. I have found myself sometimes instinctually doing it, where I'm not even consciously putting the thought into it, and realizing it almost midway in a meeting of what I'm doing. Certainly also posture more than anything else. Whether I'm leaning in because there's somebody who leans in, whether I'm resting on my shoulder because that's the position that they're taking. So I have internally noticed it. I have not been in a situation where I and the client together have remarked upon shared posturing. And then I think I would answer with, yeah, it's kismet, isn't it? I'm not sure, but it's a great question.
Experiences where I caught the other person mirroring me.
Have you, in a way that it feels like it's not authentic, where they
Yes.
are just trying to copy you?
So
Oh.
mostly body language.
Yeah.
So mostly body language among men, especially you'll do something like this with the leg up.
Right,
And
right.
I see the other person doing that. Then I move my legs apart, something, and I see and I get really uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that you're right, and I think that comment speaks to the fact that it can't be forced.
Yeah.
Because then it really, it's a telltale sign, clearly, which is unfortunate.
Do you ever take liberty and just start doing things?
I start moving my legs and I see if that's a test, whether they're doing that or not. And it goes to that point where you have to come through a genuine way,
Yes.
rather than that really
Yeah.
methodical.
It's true. It's not about sacrificing the self in order to copy the client. Like, it should never be about that.
And that mirroring can happen in a genuine way, though, and feel awkward.
Yeah.
Like if you're both scratching your head. Wait. And it's like totally genuine.
Oh.
Well, there.
There's also mirroring the actions you want it to do. So if somebody's
You can't fight that.
having the body language of being closed off and trying to relax them by closing and
By-
then, like relax.
By countering it, yes, by showing them kind of the alternative.
Right.
That's right. That's a great point as well. Definitely. Yes?
So I had I don't know how to phrase this question, but I noticed you didn't have an issue tracker as one of the channels of communication.
I did not. You're right. But it could be. I mean, but
Well, I'm
absolutely.
curious,
I'm clearly showing my real feelings against Jira by not.
getting clients to use the tools to make it a successful project.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, thanks for the curveball, Aaron. But yes, you're right. I mean, I think that is a really. Oh, sorry. Yes. The question was about, or comment certainly about the tools that your agency uses for maximum success on the project and making sure that everybody on the team is communicating one centralized way. What do you do when that may not be the way that the client wants to communicate? That is a great question.
And
So
I've seen like the worst case scenario is Word documents
yes.
that have multiple versions through email. And
So lifetime client that I mentioned, huge fans of Word docs. Yeah, it is. John's got his head in his hands. It is. Yes, that is an issue, and we've worked with clients that from the very first meeting have said, "I hate Basecamp." Well, that's the tool that we use to make sure that our project teams are all fully informed and understand. So again, I think understanding, there's always, we need to decide what are the things that are important to us, what are the battles that we fight and we think are ultimately going to lead to success, and what are the areas that we can tailor. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you all.